Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday. Glad to have you with us. As always, I hope your week has started off well, and if not, we'll get it headed in the right direction, hopefully. Great program on the docket today, packed as a matter of fact. Mike DeCourcy will join us early as always, and Evan Miyakawa will join with in our second segment with Mike. And we'll talk about some new metrics that Evan is working on and believes that would be a better fit for the current NCAA men's tournament pre-package, I guess, to see who goes where. And plenty more to get to in addition to that. Obviously, a lot to talk about. Lots of comments already up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. And plenty, we'll talk about that. Lots of names being thrown around for the Indiana coach's position. There's that to talk about. But, you know, I keep asking people, have you looked into the viability of any of the people that you're throwing out there? And I don't, a lot of names get thrown out without doing any research. And we'll talk about that a little bit, because I went through and tried to do as much research as possible yesterday. If you go to thehoosier.com, you will find a list of names that have been thrown out there. Good morning, Cheryl Sizemore. And we'll go through those and see who is just basically eliminated from contention. So Tyrone pointing out Jeffersonville versus New Albany tonight down in Southern Indiana. One of the oldest, if not the oldest, basketball rivalry in the state. I think it's been played more times than any other. They played a lot. I know that. Sharon Wilkerson taking his Jeff Red Devils as they're trying to get ready for the state tournament a little bit later. So good luck to Sharon. Although he's playing, no, he's not playing my Highlanders. It's New Albany, so good. We'll try to hit up on the, Brian pointing out that there was an article about Buzz Williams. Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. An entire article was written about how Indiana should go after Buzz Williams. All right. Well, let me give you a little information real quick about Buzz Williams. Not that he's a bad guy, bad coach. He's good both ways. He's a good guy, good coach, very successful. A guy that you probably would like to have on your staff. He's at Texas A&M right now. He's 52, so he's young enough. Fits right in there. His current salary, $4.5 million. Man, not a big deal. He's shown a remarkable ability to turn around struggling programs, having led Virginia Tech and now Texas A&M to the NCAA tournament. He built teams with a tough defensive-minded approach. Indiana offers a huge opportunity for Williams to coach at a high-profile program, providing the resources and platform for success that he probably hasn't had before. However, his teams have sometimes struggled offensively, and his average conference finish is around 6th. It's also unclear if his coaching style would translate to the heightened expectations at Indiana. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because I look at the buyout. His buyout is between $12 and $16 million. To me, that's a no-go. Indiana is not going to pay a $16 million buyout for someone. I just don't see that. So, to me, he's eliminated. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm being too simplistic. And Brian wants to know, give us my take on why Beard isn't a viable choice. Well, that's pretty easy. I mean, come on, people. Do you think Indiana University has a female president, first of all? And I'm not saying that that is less than a male. It's not about that. It's about the issues with Chris Beard. Chris Beard has a domestic violence issue in his past. I don't want to hear the crap about the charges were dropped and blah, 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 blah. I'm not for or against him. Get that straight. I think he would be a great get. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think he does a hell of a job. I think he wins, and I think he would win at Indiana instantaneously. I'm not saying he's a bad choice. I'm just giving you my opinion on why it won't happen. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen because of that, period. And that's just the long and the short of it. I don't, it's not about judging. I'm just going through the facts. That is it. That's quickly, precisely why. And again, I will tell you all day long, I think this position is Dusty May's to take or turn down. He fits in every category. He checks the boxes. His buyout is more than attainable, which is a little odd considering he's in his first season at a Power 4 conference school. That's no accident. It's so he had the opportunity to make the decision if it came to be. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to make that decision. It's a hard choice for him to leave a place where he's very happy, where he's been treated very well, leave a place that took a chance on him to bring him to the big time. Indiana didn't do that, not when they had the opportunity to. But I still think that he is where it starts and ends. It will be his to turn down. And that's where it starts and ends for me as far as options on what I think Indiana is going to do. This is not my belief. This is not who I think belongs there. Again, don't confuse the two. I'm delivering opinions on the facts as they are. I think that, and now if I ask myself, what do I think Dusty is going to do? Now that, I don't think that I have an opinion on that yet. I don't know. I think that this is a dream job. I think it's as hard as a decision as he's ever had to make in his life on whether to leave Michigan after a single season and take the dream job of his life. And all the other crap that people want to talk about, the situation that's going, none of that matters. None of that matters. It's a clean slate when you get there. When whomever gets there next, it's going to be a clean slate. But we'll see. I just don't think that. Now, there's another name that I also think is a viable candidate this time around that wasn't last time. Doesn't mean that they are, but Scott Drew at Baylor, his buyout is only $4.5 million. He's 54. So all of that works into the equation. He's got, he's a Hoosier native. So, that kind of works into it, which means he knows the Midwest very well. He's won a national championship at Baylor, but that was right before NIL and the transfer portal. And maybe he's ready for a change. Maybe he's ready for a new challenge. And of all places to do it, why not at one of the places that offers the most resources available? The basketball state. Very possible. I think that he's doable this time. Last time it just wasn't. So there are two names right at the top that are very, very good choices. And you've got Chris Beard. I'm not eliminating him. I just personally, I don't think that Indiana goes there for the obvious reasons. And people can say, who's happy where all they want, but at the end of the day, you don't know what changes. Dusty May's happy at Michigan. Of course he's happy. Of course, Scott Drew's happy. He's making $5 million a year. Why would he not be happy? It's not about being happy. It's about being happier or a challenge. Guys, that's the thing you have to understand. These guys like challenges as well. And sometimes things get stale. And again, with Scott Drew, he won before the NIL and the portal were in existence. Right before it happened. Maybe a move to Indiana. Maybe being the guy that returns Indiana to prominence is enough to draw someone, one of those two. We'll see. I don't think Brad Stevens is a viable name, so people can stop talking about that. Again, do a little research. Do you know what Brad Stevens makes a year right now? $11.25 million a year without having the pressure of being a coach. He's the president of the Celtics. That brings its own pressure, granted, but yeah, there's plenty more. We've got plenty of time to talk about this. The great Mike DeCourcy is going to join us next, and then later with Mike, Evan Miyakawa will join us, and we're going to talk some potential new metrics to throw in. In the second hour, Joe Hillman will join us, and we'll talk more about the Indiana basketball situation. Glad to have you along, no matter how and where you're listening, whether it's on one of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, the Ref, always the right call in Evansville, or the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, WJOB in Hammond, Chicago, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it locked right here all day for great content. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Mike DeCourcy right after this break.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Tuesday. Grateful to have our good friend Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, and Fox as well. Mike, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Great. I'm just sitting here staring at your bracket, and as I was perusing quickly, what jumped out at me was there are 3 SEC teams at the number 1 slot, and I was just moving on to the number 2 seeds, and first thing I see is another SEC team at Florida, and then Texas A&M. And let's see, any more? No, I think that's it. That's all in the 1 and the 2, but that's enough. My gosh, that's an inordinate amount of teams, just showing how dominant they have been this year. How it's going to be almost impossible for the SEC not to win the national championship.
Well, there's still
not impossible, but almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, you still have Duke out there to cope with, and Houston and Iowa State to a lesser extent. It won't be easy, but I would say that if it's take the SEC or the field, I'm probably going to take the SEC because I get almost the entire first 2 lines of seeds. But it is an interesting thing what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, and it shows that it's interesting because a year ago when it was the Mountain West that had a surprising number of teams, there were all these questions about the net rankings and how valid they were. And now that it's the SEC that's dominating, there aren't any questions. Now, I'm not saying that the net rankings are perfect, but they are what they are. And I don't think people always understand what they are or what they're used for, what the purpose is. I don't think people understand the quad system in the way that they made it as simple as possible, and people are trying to make it complicated. It's not if you have 7 quad 1 wins and I have 6 quad 1 wins, Jim, that means I'm automatically better than you. And the committee has taken great pains over the years to describe it and explain it. And I and Joe Lenardi and Jerry Palm have taken great pains over the years to explain it and describe it. And people just believe what they want to believe. It's surprising, Jim, in America in 2025 that people will just believe what they want to believe. But that's kind of how it is. A week ago, Friday, I posted the bracket and I had Illinois as a 6 seed. And I had an Illinois fan say, good morning, Fred. I said, how the person said, how could they be a 6 seed when they have such and such and such and such? And I said, so I looked at their resume and I said, they have 3 losses that are against teams that are out of my field. And you have to remember that I'm viewing my bracket as the committee would view the actual bracket. And if the committee looked at the bracket and saw that Illinois had 3 losses against teams that were not in their field, that would be a ding. That would be something that would be used against them. And the person on the internet was trying to tell me that's not a thing. And I'm like, I've been doing this. Is my 6th year doing this. It's like I didn't just fall off a truck. It's my 6th year doing actual bracket. It's my 30th year covering college basketball for the Sporting News. I mean, I know what they look at. I've never heard a committee member say that. Well, I talk to actual committee members in person, not just not just hear what they say on TV after the selection is made. These things all matter. And honestly, one of the things that I'll say, Jim, I was talking to in Memphis yesterday, and then I was talking to a Connecticut podcast, and the message that I reiterate is about the polls and that sort of thing. People are upset about the polls, and I'm like, why would you worry about that? It doesn't say anything about your team. Like the Memphis people, why are we 14 instead of 12 or whatever? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's just empty validation, maybe. But if you really want to know where your team is going and where they stand and what their future might be, look at my bracket. Look at Joe's. Don't have to look at mine. Look at Joe's or Jerry's. Look at the consensus on the matrix, the bracket matrix. Any of those will tell you more about your team than an AP poll will, because whether or not I'm 100% right every year, and I'm not, I'm pretty close. And that doesn't make me unique. I'm not saying that I'm the best, but we all get pretty close to what the committee does because we've studied it. We've analyzed it. We've been doing it for a long time. and we're all in the pretty close in the ballpark. Like if I say by the end of the year that Memphis is a 4 seed, they're either going to be a 3, 4, or 5. It's not going to be far off that. At that level of the bracket, I'm not missing by 2 lines. It just doesn't happen. And so that's what you should be paying attention to is what, again, not necessarily what I say, although I'd prefer it, but any of the bracket analysts that you see prominently featured in the media are going to be pretty close to what the final score will be.
Yeah, I think that you guys do an unbelievable job because it's not that easy. If it was, everybody would do it, and they don't. So that's what I always say about that. And if it was that easy, we'd all be millionaires because we'd be busting out ESPN or whomever's bracket busters at the end of the year and making money. So, yeah, it's not that easy. I want to, in our next segment, Evan Miyakawa was supposed to join us last week. He got sick, couldn't. He's going to join us in the next segment, Mike, to talk about that new metric that he's kind of come up with. He thinks that the quad system, it may be time to retire that, but
I don't agree with that.
And I look forward to that conversation between you guys. And that's why I wanted to have you two on and me just kind of get the hell out of the way, because I'm like, I know where where my level of expertise lies, and it ain't there. But right now, Indiana looking for a head basketball coach, Mike. That decision came down last week, and although it didn't come as smoothly as people probably have liked, what else would you have expected? But it doesn't matter. But now we move on to the possibilities, and there's all these names out there. And the first thing I'm telling people is stop. Before you just throw names out willy-nilly, which they are doing. I've seen that there was an article yesterday about Buzz Williams, and I'm like, okay, just do a little research, and it doesn't take you very long to find out that Buzz Williams has a buyout of between $12 and $16 million. That eliminates him. He's gone. There were some other names. Somebody had a buyout of $21 million. I'm like, gone. I know what Vic Cronin's buyout is because I looked at that last year and I was like, gone. There are just so many people you can quickly eliminate, and people don't think about that aspect of it. Then they want to bring up Brad Stevens. He doesn't have a buyout, but he makes $11.2 million a year without the pressure of being a college basketball coach. And not that there's not pressure being the president of one of the most storied franchises in all of pro sports. There is, but it's a different kind of pressure. It's a manageable pressure, and he ain't doing it. I just don't see that happening. Now, there are very likely scenarios. Dusty May, of course, is without question to me where it starts and ends. It's his to turn down because he does have a very doable buyout currently at $5 million. And it is a dream job of his. Does not mean it's a dream for him right now, because this will be the hardest decision he's ever made in his life, having to leave Michigan after one season to go to the dream job back home. Whether he does or not, I don't know. But I do know, or I do think highly, is my opinion, he is the top choice for Indiana. It's not my top choice, it's Indiana, and that's all that matters. And so that's how I see that. I was just wondering what your thoughts on that one is before we go further.
Well, Jim, I don't anticipate him making that move. That would be my expectation. And I understand why he would be the top choice. I think if Indiana had thought about it a little harder 12 months ago, they probably could have moved in this direction then and gotten it done.
We posted an article about that 12 months ago that said that very thing. We were asked to take that article down.
I mean, that's the reality, is that if they had done that 12 months ago, they would have had him. I think that was their window to get Dusty May. And I suspect that I will let me put it this way. I will be very surprised if there is not a contract extension of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
With Dusty May at Michigan prior to the Big Ten tournament because they've got a terrific team. I know they like him. I know that they're happy with him, and they're not going to want to come to Indianapolis with that unsettled. That would be a very problematic circumstance for everyone involved, from the players themselves through Dusty, through the Michigan administration, to have all of that out there and them right in the middle of the biggest city in the state where this is the biggest story at the moment. Pacers, big deal. They're playing very well. They're a big deal. Caitlin Clark, big deal, but she doesn't start balling again until late April, early May. The Colts draft, yeah, we'll get to that, but that's not until late April. So the biggest story in the state of Indiana for the foreseeable future is who is the next Hoosiers coach. And that's not to slight the great job Purdue's doing and pursuing the Big Ten championship. But you know how media works. Yeah, the games are important, but the media are not going to pay as much attention to that as they are to the identity of the next coach. And so I don't think that Michigan's going to want to come to the Big Ten tournament with this terrific team and that hanging over it. So that's my prediction. It's just this sort of thing. The last time it happened, think about it. The last time something similar to what we're talking about happened was Roy Williams leaving North Carolina leaving Kansas for North Carolina. And he did it as a favor, basically a personal favor to Dean Smith. And it took him 2 times to do it because he turned it down once and they went and hired Matt Doherty. It didn't go as well as they wanted. And then they came back at him a second time. They said, we really need you this time, obviously, because look what we just went through. And so he said, okay,
You think Scott Dolson can't do that to Dusty?
But I understand that. But I mean, that's how rare it is, Jim. And remember, this is not somebody who just went to school at Carolina, but somebody who had a lifelong relationship basically with the person who was doing the ask. So I just, I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't
disagree with you. My only argument into this is his buyout that was purposely negotiated, the low buyout.
Okay.
There's nobody that has a buyout close to this. I
understand that.
I've been reading, none of them are first-year guys.
I understand that, but part of that was smart agenting. I don't know who Dusty's agent is, but think about it. They knew that this was a possibility at some time in the near future, whether it was 25 or 26. It was pretty obvious that Mike Woodson was not going to be coaching IU into his 70s, just based on the way that the thing was developing. So you keep the buyout low so that he remains a candidate. And then when that opens, then you say, okay, it's time. And obviously, 2 things would have to happen. One, he'd have to have a great year or years at Michigan. He's done that, and so therefore he would have to remain a plausible candidate, and he's done that. So all of that puts him in a position where he can now use the leverage to get that extension that I was talking about that would be in place prior to Indy. We'll see whether I'm right or not, but that usually the way I analyze these things is what usually happens. That's what usually happens now. And it almost never happens high major to high major. Almost never. Like very small percentage. And the advantage Indiana has in this, Jim, is that the math and the chemistry on those have changed. Okay. Big Ten and SEC now are different level than Big 12 ACC. Financially, security-wise, all of that. They are at a different level at this point than what was in place 5 years ago. So if it went like a year ago, it went BYU to Kentucky. Yes, those are 2 high major conferences, but they're not 2 high major conferences on the exact same plane. And certainly Kentucky is not on the same plane as BYU in terms of program history, et cetera. And IU can say the same thing. So the advantage IU has is that there is a much broader array of potential candidates now than there would have been 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Absolutely. In their last cycle, they were there was just nothing there for them.
Yeah. And even if you go back to 2018, they had great candidates available to them. Chris Mack was at Xavier. Arch Miller was at Dayton. Chris Holtman was at Butler. Mick Cronin was at Cincinnati. They were all having great success where they were. They chose Arch from that group and from the broader group. I got yelled at because when I wrote in my coaching search list that they made the right hire in Arch, how could you say that's the right hire? Well, the right hire doesn't always turn out right. I mean, you can make the right hire and it can turn out a disappointment. And that's what happened. I'm not saying they made the wrong decision when they moved on from Arch. It wasn't quite working. They just could not get that rock over the hill. And so it didn't work, and that's fine. But it wasn't the wrong choice at the time. But there's an even broader pool of candidates available now because of the way the Big Ten and SEC have separated themselves financially.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out two names right now. And one of them may sound like a pie in the sky, and maybe it is. And before it was. This time around, I'm like, it's a possibility. They'll listen. Scott Drew at Baylor. When he won his national championship, that was just before NIL, just before the portal. And he's 54. His age works out. His buyout is only 4.5. That works out. Indiana is this sleeping giant. I don't care what people think. I don't look at it as a fan. I know Indiana's a sleeping giant now in the era of the portal and NIL. Are you kidding me? It's just waiting for the right guy to come along and do what Pat Kelsey is doing, what Mark Pope is doing, what Dusty May is doing, what Chris Beard is doing, what these guys have done at these new schools with this availability. And Indiana offers that in spades, in addition to recruiting and state and all of that. So it may be a more attractive position this time around. If he's looking for a new challenge, he may be I know he's happy. He may be happy enough to say, not worth looking at. But that is kind of the last big name I would throw in there. And then it would go to Brian Brownwell. He's got a $6.5 million buyout. And then Ben McCollum is perfectly doable. And those would be the two next names.
You know, I mean, there are others that, I mean, I think on my list, I put Grant McCaslin.
Yeah. Texas. Oh, no, he's on there. He's on there as well.
Yeah. And I think that one's very doable. I got a lot of
$8.4 million buyout, though.
What was the number?
$8.5 million buyout.
If you think that's like, you're not going to allow $3 million to make the difference. If that's what you think is if you think he's the right person, why would that be any different than $5 million? It's just not that, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's not a lot of money. If you want to give it to me, I'll take it. But
I hear you.
But it's not, that doesn't change the dynamic if you believe he's the right guy. And I think his track record suggests that he is. He's doing a magnificent job at a place that isn't a sleeping giant. Let's be honest. I mean, this is a true story. I'll tell you this story. In 1996, I was covering the Memphis Tigers, and Texas Tech was 31-2, I think, and they were I think they were winning a lot of people's National Coach of the Year, James Dickey, and they were 31-2. 30-2, something like that, and they got like a 6 seed or something. I didn't really love that by the committee, or maybe they were a 3. I can't remember now. But anyway, so I am flying to Albuquerque from Memphis because in the NCAA tournament, the Tigers are going to play Drexel at the Pit in New Mexico, and I had a window seat, and the pilot said, if you look out on the left, you'll see Lubbock, Texas. And I looked out on the left, and I saw a little dot in a spade of nothing. And I'm like, James Dickey is doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that is not Indiana, is all I'm saying. So If Grant McCasley can do what he's doing at Texas Tech, he can do it at Indiana. And that I think an $8 million buyout versus a $5 million buyout, that I just don't think there's anybody that's going to stop and say no. That's too much. It's
probably, especially if they can work out a deal like there's already in the contract with Mike Woodson, in which they can pay, they can spread that out over the amount of years per. So, hey, we've got to take a quick break. Evan Miyakawa is going to join us in the next segment, and we'll put these two bracketology guys, the brains together, bracket analyst, as Mike is known to be called, and Evan is he's a stats doctor, Mike. And when I say stats doctor, I'm not kidding. He's got the PhD, baby. Should call him Dr. Stats. We've got lots coming up. We appreciate you being with us here from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Back with more right after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie Island, Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Tuesday, and now fortunate to be joined, in addition to the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Big Ten, and Fox Networks, Evan Miyakawa from evanmia.com, and you know he was just on with us not too long ago. We were talking numbers. Welcome back, Evan. Appreciate you. He's a West Coaster, so he's really doing us a solid today coming on with us, brother. Appreciate you.
Glad to be here. Worth beat up early for you guys.
You look like it's just at a normal time of day, though, or you just don't sleep like a vampire.
Or maybe I just really love basketball.
There's that. Well, hey, we should have you put those numbers to use for who's going to be the next Indiana basketball coach and see what that comes out to be. Boy, that would be nice if you could figure that out.
Oh, boy. No, that's I think there's a little bit more involved than just crunching numbers for that one, unfortunately.
There are a lot of number crunching, though, with the buyouts and this and that and all of that. It's amazing. What is amazing to me is, probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there were buyouts, but the number, when I started looking through all these, the number of high buyouts, there seems to be a lot more of them. People like Buzz Williams, he's got a $12 to $16 million buyout. Who the hell is Buzz Williams? I mean, I know who Buzz Williams is, but it's not like he's won a national championship or something. But these schools they're tired of going through this, and they'll take winning, consistent winning, without the possibility of maybe a national championship, just a hope, as opposed to the other, and with good reason. If you're winning, people are happy. They always want to win more, but winning cures a lot. And so I'm just surprised that TJ Otzelberger, his buyout, 15 to 18 million. So you can forget about, and that's at Iowa State, people. Iowa State, the mecca of all college basketball, Iowa. Just kidding. But the fact that he's built the program he's built there, boy, that says a hell of a lot to me. What a job he's doing. And I understand him having that high buyout. Why would you get rid of or allow him to get away from you?
Yeah, I think, like, especially for a guy like TJ, where I think for a lot of these coaches, especially in the modern portal era, with how quickly you can retool your roster, you can tell within a year or two if a guy is going to be a smashing hit. That doesn't mean that it couldn't take longer, but for a guy like TJ, his first year at Iowa State, he had like nothing on his team, and they were like really good. And so it was immediately obvious that he was going to be a great coach. And so at that point, you're already thinking about renegotiating that contract and getting that buyout high, because programs like in Indiana or that type of thing are going to come knocking. So it's smart. Once you know what you have on your hands, it's smart.
Absolutely. You and Mike know each other, right? It's been a while. How long has it been since you guys have seen each other, talked, or whatever?
That would have been in Arizona last year at the Final Four. It was actually we've communicated prior to that, but that was our first opportunity to meet in person.
Yeah, it was great to meet Mike at the Final Four. It was my first Final Four actually covering the sport in person, because I've only been doing this for several years. I've only been running my website full-time for about a year. So it was really fun to finally get to meet Mike in person.
It always is, let me tell you, because if you're meeting Mike in person, you're someplace. You are someplace. That means you are someplace special, no doubt. I told Mike about, you had an article a while back that I was reading that I found interesting, in which you see that the quad system is something that can maybe moved aside and replaced now with something. And I'd rather you give the full explanation, because obviously that would be like me explaining nuclear science to people.
Yeah, if you're tuning into the show, you are probably familiar with the quad system. It's a very kind of basic way of bucketing your wins ultimately, and saying like what level of win is. A quad 1 win is a top tier win, all the way down to quad 4, which means it's hardly worth anything. And I think part of why the quad system is so popular is because it tells a very clear message. It says, how did you do against the best opponents on your schedule? What was your record there? And then basically, what was kind of your record in all of these other like mid-tier to low-tier games? Do you have any bad losses? And so I think in that sense, it does a good job of communicating like your win quality and your loss quality. But one of the things that you'll know with the quad system, if you've been around it for a while, is that it has these very crude cutoffs as to what qualifies a win to be in what bucket. So, if you're playing a team who is 75th in the net versus 76th in the net, that's hardly any difference. That win can be a difference between a quad 1 and a quad 2 win. And those wins can change overnight based on what other teams are doing, or even just random fluctuation in the net. And so for that reason, the bucketing sort of system that the quad system employs there can be a little bit insensitive to some of the more nuances of those wins. A quad 1 win on the road against Auburn, like Florida had, is not the same as, a home win against, St. Mary's or something like that. They're just not quite the same. And so I know the selection committee, and I'm sure Mike knows this too, like they do a really good job of looking at all of the different metrics, all the information they have available. And they're not just going to quickly say, 5-5 Q1 record is the same across all teams and all that. They're much more detailed than that. But the way that it's used, especially in public discourse, just of comparing team resumes and things like that, I think is can be improved. And so something that I really advocate for moving towards away from the quadrant system is a more fluid system that actually looks at each win and gives it a value based on a sliding scale of how difficult that game is. One of the ways that this is already done, which has been recently this year added to the team sheet that the selection committee uses for selecting teams, is wins above bubble, popularized by Bart Torvik. It's a great tool because it basically looks at, okay, regardless of how easy or hard your schedule is, how many wins would an average bubble team be expected to win against your schedule? And then how many wins do you actually have? And I think it's a much better, more scientific way of measuring how did you do against your schedule. A new metric that I just debuted that I think does a similar job, but also does more to communicate the wins and losses component, is this metric called resume quality. It's similar in that it's looking at how good would a team that's going to just make the tournament right on the NCAA cut line be against your schedule. So if that team would be expected to win 12 games and you've won 15, then you have a resume quality of +3. But the interesting thing is that it goes back to the quadrant system in that it tells you about how quality your wins and losses are by dividing it into two categories, win quality and loss quality. So for a given team, you can look on my website on the team resumes page and you can see, okay, Purdue has the 6th best resume quality. But if you break that into wins and losses, their win quality is 3rd. So that means they have some of the best wins in the country, and then their loss quality is 13th. So that means they've lost a few more games, or some games that you might not expect, like a home game versus Iowa State, for example. And so you can kind of get a better understanding of, do they have elite wins? Do they have any bad losses? And I think it's just a better way of getting to the same thing. But the other cool thing that you can do is you can specifically go on my site and hover over any team and see the value of every single win and loss based on how a team just making the tournament would do. And so you can see, hey, this particular win bumped them up by this much. And that gives you a lot more understanding as to, where they fall relative to other teams, the work that they need to do. And I just like it a lot more. So I've been really pushing that recently. I just debuted it in the last week or two, and I think it's really interesting. But, I'd love to hear, Mike, your thoughts on that, because I know you've been around this process for a long time and understand the intricacies there.
Well, I like your metric. I think it's fascinating, and I certainly think that, first of all, I am a fan of resume metrics, record metrics, whatever you want to call them. I over the predictive metrics in regards to this process. And one of the things that's fascinating to me is that our friend Andy Katz from the Big Ten Network, from the NCAA, he did an interview session. He recorded it in December, but it was released last week, with the people who are in charge of all of the metrics that are on the team sheet. So he had Ken Pomeroy, he had Kevin Pauga, he had the people at ESPN who are in charge of strength of record and BPI. They have two of them, one predictive, one results-based metric. And he had all these people basically in a room. It was a virtual room. And almost without exception, they said not only that resume metrics should be used for selection, which was what I knew the position of people like Ken to be, but they even said that they thought that should be used more for seeding as well, which I was surprised, because I remember when we had the meeting that led to the formation of the net, that I thought at that point that Ken's position was more toward resume metrics for getting in, predictive metrics for seeding. And I think if you look at it, that has been, they have leaned toward that. For instance, it's funny, I had a discussion, I can't remember who it was with now, but someone in this realm, about the use of resume metrics versus predictive metrics. And one person cited Providence 2022 as an example of how predictive metrics are used in terms of seeding and how they are emphasized. And I said, well, geez, I kind of thought of that as a way that the results metrics propped up Providence against the tide of the predictive metrics, because their predictives were very poor. As like this year, the example of that would be Memphis, which has a fantastic set of resume metrics because they have a long list of significant quality wins, but then their predictives are poor. They're down in the 40s in most of the predictives. So that to me is a fascinating fascinating discussion. And I think that your metric, it would be an excellent addition to the team sheet. I still have a belief in the quad system because of there is a portability to it. It does give you the opportunity to look at somebody quickly and say, there's something missing there. And then your job is to say, okay, what's missing and why is it missing? Houston, for a lot of this year, and I don't know where we're going to be by the time we get to March, but for a lot of this year, Houston was sitting on one quad one win, even though their predictives had them second or third in the country. And I think that, why is that? You look at it and you say, okay, why is that number so low when everything else is so high? And then you look at the schedule and you see that they played a series of difficult games and lost them all. And that's why that was the case at that point. Texas Tech was another who was sitting on a pretty strong metrics in terms of predictives, but a meager resume. And those are being rectified as we speak, because as in all cases, conference competition in February for the better teams usually escalates. That's why Michigan State's going through a difficult time now. Has Michigan State gotten worse? Well, they did have some bug issues that have been going through various programs, but the schedule's harder now. And so that I think that there's a value to it. I think the public looks at it in ways that it shouldn't necessarily. I was talking, Evan, before you got on about, and I'd be curious to hear what you thought. A gentleman who was an Illinois fan was yelling at me for having them a 6 seed because they have a significant number of quad one wins. And I said, yes, but they also have 3 losses against teams that are outside my field. And he said, that's not a thing. In his mind, it didn't matter that they weren't in the field because they were quad one or high quad 2 losses. And it's like, no, sir, if you're not in the tournament, they can see that because they're the ones that are putting the tournament together.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. I think that really illustrates how, based on just kind of the conversation around the selection committee, people kind of start to form their own biases about how they think that these things work and what matters and what doesn't. So I think Illinois is a great example. My resume quality metric has them 39th. That would be like the last 10 seed. So you're probably being a little bit generous based on the work that they've done, on how a bubble team would do against their schedule. I do want to ask you this, because I think one of the main motivation for this, partly for me, is to help eliminate some of these biases, both in public discourse, but also for the teams themselves scheduling games, of being able to afraid to schedule good mid-major teams who don't have that name value, but actually could beat you at your own place. Because we're seeing this more and more. Power conference teams are trying to just play as many sub 300 teams in the non-conference and then only play high majors as much as they can, avoiding teams like a Drake and Iowa State, Missouri Valley teams. And I do think that a more scientific system that says, hey, you're going to get more credit for this win, even though it may not be a quad one win, it's still going to be more valuable than beating, East-West University. The main example of this was Indiana State last year. I think this is what motivated me a lot, is when you looked at their quad one records, their number of quad one opportunities was really small. And if you're already used to saying, hey, I like looking at teams that have 9 or 10 quad one opportunities and have gone at least 300 against that, if you're kind of used to that based on looking at the quad system, you're going to see an Indiana State, or this year, like one of the best teams out of the Big West, a UC San Diego or a UC Irvine, and say, oh, they're only 0-1 in quad one, or they're 1-1 or whatever. And then you're going to kind of dismiss the rest of the resume because that's just kind of what you're used to looking at. And all of a sudden they're just not even in the picture, when in reality, they've played a lot of mid-tier teams, those quad 2, quad 3 opportunities, and they've won a lot more of those games than you would be expected to win as a team of their caliber. And those games are a lot more valuable in the quad 4 win. The other week I was comparing, but before Kentucky took some more losses, some Kentucky fans were kind of upset at why I didn't have them ranked higher in win quality specifically, because Kentucky fans believe that they have some of the best wins in the country, and that's true. They have about 7 elite wins against top-tier competition. But when you look at how their wins break down, almost all the other wins that they had are non-conference cupcakes, where, hardly it takes a team nowhere near their strength to beat these teams comfortably, whereas you look at a team like Purdue, in the non-conference, they invited like a strong Yale team at home and they beat them. That should get more credit. They play in a Big Ten that, has some teams that are more on the bottom side, but wins at home against, Northwestern and USC still matter a lot more. And so I think it helps to a system like this helps to, again, eliminate some of those biases that you see kind of just, especially in public discourse, because I think it's blown up to an exponential degree, even more so than in the selection committee room. So I'm curious to see what you think about that sort of thing.
One of the things, I totally agree with that, but one of the things that I've been on for 20 years probably has been very much along the lines of what you're talking about is, okay, so a high major avoids a strong mid-major. But you know who else avoids strong mid-majors? Evan, strong mid-majors. They don't play each other ever. They try to avoid one another even more strenuously than the high majors do, because they don't want to deal with the idea in their minds of being of an elimination game. If I'm Drake and I play UC Irvine, one of us loses that game and it hurts us. And that's not reality either. Those teams could use that game. And I think that Drake probably knew Irvine was good, and Irvine probably knew Drake was going to be good this year, and they could have easily played. And it would have been a home game for one of them, which would have made their schedule better. But I've been talking about this for 20 years, and I've seen no move at all from the mid-majors. When the bracket buster was happening, all the discourse around the bracket buster was that it was eliminating quality mid-majors from consideration rather than elevating. And that was never true, but that's what developed around it. And so I think that in addition to the expense and the challenge of orchestrating that event, I think that mid-major enthusiasm for being involved waned as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do really think that there is kind of this hindsight's 2020 thing where if you're on the losing end of one of those games, you say, we shouldn't have played that game. The reality is you should look at it up front and say, hey, we don't know who's going to win this game, but on aggregate, this is good for both of us, because, one of us is going to gain more than the other one loses, basically, is how you should view these things. And so even if you go into a game and you say, I'm a mid-major and I'm playing this other better mid-major school, and we only have a 25% chance of winning this game, so we'll probably regret it. That 25% chance, if you convert on that, is going to be huge, and it probably won't be as detrimental for the other team as they think. So you really got to think more about this than just, did we win or did we lose that game, and was it worth it? Because I think, a lot of people look at things this way. If the thing goes wrong, you feel worse about it than if the thing goes well, you just move past it. And in reality, it's more nuanced than that.
I don't like my bracket in the sense that everybody with the on the top 11 lines, if we consider the Mountain West to be relative, especially the successful teams to be relatively high major, and the West Coast teams to be playing at a major level in Gonzaga and St. Mary's, the only mid-major team I have on my first 11 lines is Drake. It's the only one on my first 11 lines. I don't like that. I don't want that. I want those teams to play, but that's what they're putting out to me. That's the seasons they're having. George Mason is crushing it on a regular basis, but there's nothing about who they played and what they did prior to playing in the Atlantic 10 that suggests they need to be higher, or that if, and possibly even that if they don't win their league tournament, that they'll get in. I don't like that. I'm not against the mid-majors. That's where I started covering college basketball, and I've enjoyed being in mid-major gyms over the years, but that's kind of what the product that they're pointing out there right now. And it's hard. You can't change the reality just because you want to wish it away.
Yeah. And
funny, I think you should mention, not to butt in, funny you should mention Drake, Ben McCollum, one of the names high on the list for Indiana's potential head coach. Please go ahead there.
Well,
Evan.
I was just going to say, I know some mid-majors complain about the fact that they can't get high major games, and obviously that's somewhat out of their control. But like you said, what is within your control is to schedule against teams who are kind of at your level. And to me, the way I think about it is if you're coming from a conference that is traditionally a one-bid league, most years, more often than not, that's going to be how it is, a one-bid league. So any darts that you can throw at the wall to just kind of add some extra opportunity to potentially catapult a team and get two teams out of your conference or one team out of your conference who is at large good enough, you should take that risk, if you want to call it, because worst case, it doesn't pan out for your team and you still have to win your conference tournament. What else is new? But if it does pan out and you win 3 of those games against, a Drake and a Utah State and a UC Irvine, all of a sudden you're in Drake's situation this year where you actually have a resume good enough. So I just don't think there's as much to lose in trying to schedule hard games. And hopefully the more that we can get, metrics like this kind of in the conversation of actually looking at teams against their schedule. I mean, even the Big West is a really great conference this year. We'll see if they have a team good enough to make the at-large picture if they make it all the way and then lose in the conference tournament. But I have UC Irvine and UC San Diego just on the basis of wins and losses against their schedule. One of them is just in the field and one of them is just out. Now, that's not predicting what the bracket would actually be if they were selected today, but just based on the merit of what they've done, those two teams have been really impressive to only have 4 losses against their schedule. And even though they don't have a win against, an Arkansas or a Northwestern on their schedule, the quality of games they're playing in that conference is a lot higher than some other low majors. And so, I think they should get more credit than that.
Kevin Brockway wanted to thank you for the information on the Condon Hall info. So big thanks there. Hey, this is going incredible, way better than I even dreamed. Do you guys have a few minutes to stick around? I have got to take a break. Let's do that. And big thanks to Mike DeCourcy and Evan Miyakawa for going a few little extra round for us today. We've got more coming up on the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Back with it right after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33 Pizza. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. We're very fortunate to have both Evan Miyakawa and the great Mike DeCourcy on with us. Mike, of course, from the Sporting News, Big Ten, and Fox Networks. Evan Miyakawa at evanmia.com, where you can find all of his information that used for the metrics and the matrix of the upcoming NCAA tournament. Two of the best in the business. And, man, you guys are having such a great conversation. I looked up and I was like, oh, crap. I'm so far. I've never been that far over. It was so I was so engrossed in the conversation. But yeah, please continue where you left off because I had to interrupt you. I don't remember where.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I know you've been that far over before.
Otherwise, you're declaring this is the best segment ever. So I don't.
It was very, very enthralling. Am I going to lie to you?
One thing I would ask Evan is, have you had any communication with the NCAA about the addition of your new metric to the team sheet?
Yeah, obviously this is very new. I just debuted it in the last 2 weeks, but I was already talking a little bit to David Warlock, who's obviously very involved there. And so I'm not trying to push things too quickly. I think part of it is getting in the conversation now and next year just to really, ultimately give it a test run, if you will. I don't really necessarily have any specific intentions for this. Obviously, getting something like this on the team sheets, that the committee is using is great because I think, for all the stuff we've stated already, it really helps more fairly evaluate what teams are doing. But even just for the public discourse of helping people to, be a little bit more educated on what kinds of wins and losses really matter, I think is really useful. And obviously my website is referenced a lot for a lot of different things. And I really felt like this was kind of a hole in what I was bringing to the public discourse, where I have all of this predictive stuff, predicting team strength and player strength and all that, lineups but the resume stuff was something that I hadn't really brought something to the table yet. And so I'd been mulling over it for a while. And so really, we're still in the early stages, but I'm very optimistic about where the conversation is going.
For those who don't know what a team sheet is, it is what is essentially the resume that the NCAA views when they do the selection, the selection committee, when they meet in March. They will have a team sheet on every single the candidate for inclusion in the field. And actually, I think there was a time when it was an actual sheet, and now it's all, of course, on your computer screen. If you punch a button, you can see what Auburn's team sheet looks like, and it will include their quad records, which we discussed before, as well as their strength of schedule, their non-conference strength of schedule, and their scores in the 3 predictive metrics and the 3 results metrics. That's all contained, and it will also contain a breakdown. That's where I talked about before, the idea of the 3 teams that were out of my field, and why I think that the quad system is not problematic, because you look at quad 1 and you can, if you punch up a team's team sheet, it's not only going to tell you how many quad 1 wins Kentucky has, but it's going to tell you who they're against. And you're going to know that quad 1 win against Duke, when you look at it, you're going to know right away that quad 1 win against Duke is going to be more important than, say, the quad 1 road win that they might get at Arkansas, theoretically, that it's going to be a harder win to get. So they understand what is included in that. If they had to make the decisions just based on the quads, that would be a problem. But they obviously, it's one click away to go deeper, and we all know that they're there. They don't have anything else to do. I mean, they're stuck in that room for 6 days. They're gonna click that thing and make sure that they get a deeper look than just what the overall quad record is.
Now, I've got a question for you that I just meant to ask. Is a common thing that's been talked about, which is very fascinating, is specifically the week leading up to the tournament, when the committee's in the room and they're going over all their machinations, and we're getting towards the end of conference tournaments. A lot of people have pointed out that especially those Saturday and sometimes Sunday games often seem to matter very little, if not at all, to where the committee actually puts teams on the seed line for who the SEC champion is, or the Big Ten champion or something. And something that I found at just looking at how my resume quality metric looks is that, for example, right now, if I'm looking at teams who are, 5th through 8th, you've got Florida, Purdue, St. John's, and Houston just based on the merit of their resume. But the gap is so small. And so if they played one game tomorrow, just based on winning or losing that game on the merit of their resume, a team could jump from 7th to 4th or 7th to 9th. And so I think there is a lot of sensitivity there based on even just how much one game matters. And then you look to what actually ends up happening based on, predicted bracket 2 days before the bracket comes out and predicted bracket the day the bracket comes out. And it seems like a lot of people point out to the fact that those who wins the semifinals and finals of those big power conference tournaments hardly seems to matter. Is that something that you've picked up on, and how do you feel about that?
And I think what you'll see, Evan, and I think that you'll learn, I don't think this will surprise you either. When you get to that Saturday, you won't see those big moves any longer because the data bank will be fuller. And that what is often interpreted as, well, it doesn't seem to matter. I can tell you the Big Ten championship game, if it's between two teams that are already in the field and already seeded, the committee has said, look, we don't have time to go with that. It ends literally a half hour before the bracket goes on the air. So we don't have time. They've said that. And the Big Ten has said, you know what, we're good with that because this is a great opportunity for everybody to watch our best teams play. And CBS over the years has made it valuable to us to do this. And so they've made peace with that, knowing that. But for other games, it's really more a question of the data bank is close to full. And so unless you do something exorbitant, and how do you do something exorbitant if you're in the semifinals of a conference tournament? If you're a team that's not in the field, you could do something that maybe would change either through the automatic bid or through acquiring a win that would really make a difference to you. Yes, you can do that. But if you are Purdue right now, and let's just use my bracket as an example, you're a 2 seed. Are you going to get up to a 1 because you beat Michigan State again? It's just there's not enough impact in that. So that's why people have come to believe that the games don't matter at that level, but they matter as much as the other 35 games you played. It's just that we all understand the process well enough now that people like myself and Jerry Palm and Joe Lenardi and others can tell you this is pretty much where it is right now. And we're going to, again, I'm not holding myself out as the best or whatever, but we all have a pretty good idea of how it works. And so we're putting you very much in the neighborhood in when we get to that Saturday or that Sunday. And that one win that you get isn't going to move you up from my neighborhood to Elon Musk's.
Now, in the case where you've got, say a team that's, there's a debate between who should be the last 1 seed and the top 2 seed, and one of those teams is playing in a tournament title game or whatever, are there ways to build in contingencies and say, hey, if this team wins, bump them up automatically, if not, keep them there, that sort of thing, based on if it's tight and it's going to get decided at the last minute?
There is, and they do it. They will build contingent brackets if they think that there's some consequence available to them, and they have done it. And there have been years where they have acknowledged that they had other issues in putting things together that they didn't feel like they could do it comfortably. But they have generally been open about the idea that they will build a contingent bracket if they think it's necessary. And the other part of contingent brackets is that concept of now, of course, NC State was on a Saturday night last year, but if that game had been played in the Big Ten final a year ago, they would have had to have been ready for the possibility of, and let's just use last year, Rutgers, who didn't make it. If Rutgers had been in the final against Illinois, which was an obvious tournament team, they would have had to have been ready to have a bracket that would have had Rutgers included somewhere on the seed list. And, would they have punished Illinois for losing that game? I don't think they would have. I don't know that they would have, but it certainly would have been a possibility in that contingent bracket.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I appreciate, Jim, the opportunity to have this conversation. I think it's been very fun and hopefully enlightening for a lot of people.
It has been a blast for me, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I did, because it is a part and always will be a part on going forward, and everything is always evolving and changing. And Mike has been doing what he's doing for a while, and I know I can't imagine all the different information that you use to do that, Mike. But thank you again for the extra time today as well, man.
Well, I enjoyed it. Evan's great. Yeah, I love his work. And it's great to get a chance to connect again. And I look forward to seeing him somewhere along the March Trail.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Mike. I'm assuming you'll be in San Antonio this year, so we'll talk again then. Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely. Make sure you go to evanmia.com to get all the information that you can stand, as well as go to make sure you're following Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Big Ten, and Fox Networks. Evan, I appreciate you, brother, and hopefully we'll do this again before the tournament, and we'll try to figure some things out. Who's going to win? We'll see if we can pull that off here, brother. But anything you ever need, appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. This was awesome. Always great to talk to Mike. Obviously he's a veteran in this space, and he has so much knowledge. So always fun to be able to bring to the table what I'm working on and see what he has to say about it.
I just like to be the founder of the feast and get out of the way, baby. Let the people that have the knowledge that I don't have do it. I appreciate you. Thank you. Evan Miyakawa joining us here on the program. We've got more coming up. That includes Joe Hillman. But up next, Travis Miller will join us. We'll talk about the Indiana coaches search and the Big Ten race as well. On the backside, coming to you from the Hard Truth, the Distilling Company Studios, right after this. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios on this Tuesday. Travis Miller joining us from Boiler Upload, and the Big Ten race is staying tight. Purdue at the top of the standings, but they are closely followed by those teams from Michigan State, and the Michigan Wolverines. A lot of talk about Dusty May around here for some reason, Travis. And I know you got excited because somebody mentioned that they should go after Matt Painter, and I'm like, yeah, right, which is dumb, but that's just a total tongue-in-cheek thing. But it is to the standpoint of there are people that would like to see that style again, but I think a mixture of that style is what they'll end up getting. But who they end up getting is going to be very interesting. Dusty May is without question the top candidate, and by that I don't mean that he's the best suited. I don't mean it. That doesn't mean that he's my pick. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact he's the top candidate. He is the guy that checks boxes that you need checked, doesn't check boxes that you don't want checked, and the finances work out. He's successful. So all of that doesn't mean jack squat. He just got to Michigan, and even though this is probably his dream job without question, this doesn't always work out that way. But there are other candidates out there that, and a lot of which, Travis, boy, I can't wait till Purdue goes through this, but it won't be quite the same. But the names that are being tossed out for Indiana, some of them are just ridiculous. Now, Chris Beard is not a ridiculous name, would be a great get, great coach. Indiana would be winning next season without question. I just don't personally think Indiana will go there for the obvious reason. And that's just the long and the short of it. Doesn't mean I hold that against him. Again, listen to what I say. Not, this does not make him. I'm not eliminating him. I think Indiana will eliminate him. I don't think that unless they get, unless they were 4 deep into, Dusty decides to stay at Michigan. Very likely. Very, very possible. He did not in any way, though, close the door Saturday when he was in Bloomington and asked directly about any interest. What would he tell the fans? Boy, he gave the most mundane, vanilla answers you could possibly give. He did nothing to shut that down, but he has another reason as well. Even if he's not interested or doesn't want to take the job, he's going to get one hell of a nice raise from Michigan.
Yeah, and that's I don't envy where Indiana is right now, and I don't envy whoever they go after because just from an outsider's perspective, it's toxic.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant. That's so irrelevant to this coaching hire. It's toxic because of Mike Woodson, to be quite honest with you. It's toxic.
It goes beyond Woodson. It goes beyond Woodson. I've seen it. We've seen this for 20 years now. If a guy comes in,
because Indiana keeps making the wrong hire. They keep hiring the wrong, and that's on Indiana. So they're
impatient
pissed
too.
off. They're be upset. They're what?
They're impatient. They are incredibly impatient. I mean, Mike Woodson comes in.
Archie Miller was there for 4 years. Didn't do jack. Never had a winning Big Ten season. Mike Woodson has regressed. He has the biggest NIL payroll probably in the country, and they regressed. They're going to be lucky to make the Big Ten tournament, much less the NCAA tournament. So I don't think that's impatience. That is more, especially in today's age. You look at what Dusty is doing at Michigan, Pat Kelsey at Louisville, Mark Pope at Kentucky. I could go on. It does not take Kurt Signetti in football. Geez, Indiana was the most morbid football program in all of college football. It ain't no more, baby. They're relevant. And Indiana basketball is a sleeping giant, but Indiana administration has been in their own way for years and years and years. This is Indiana's fault. There's no question. They have created this nightmare. Now they have to get this hire right. And they have some options, luckily, but we'll see how it works out.
At what point does sleeping become a coma? Honestly, I mean, Indiana's had some success here in the last few years, but you're not going to get back to the days where a Final Four is the bare minimum expectation every season. I mean, I think Indiana can get to a level kind of where Purdue is at, where they are competitive in the Big Ten year in and year out. Capable of making a good run in the tournament. But
then why
my
do
goodness,
it if the ultimate goal is to win national championships? That's not a possibility every year, granted, but you should be in a position to where that is your goal every year, to be competitive in that area, in addition to competitive in the Big Ten, of course. But if you're not competitive nationally, what the hell are you doing? You're just going through the motions. And I don't think that those expectations are wrong to have. They're wrong to have when you don't have the stuff to do it. That's like, if you're in the Daytona 500 and you're driving in a Suzu Trooper, buddy, your expectations are probably not going to be high, nor should they be. But that's Indiana is just the right coach away. They should be doing what Duke does, what Kentucky does, what Kansas does, because no one has any more or better resources than Indiana does. There's the in-state recruiting that is built in. They have the NIL as good as anybody in the country there. And you add the portal to that, the fan base. They've got everything they need to be what they should be, except for the right guy running it. And for 8 years now, they have had someone that is not capable of doing that.
And again, that can be a catch-22 here, is they'll see, these high-level coaches that, are supposedly just a phone call away or anything. They can look at that and be like, man, do I want to walk into that toxic atmosphere? I mean, look at what has happened to Woodson getting booed. He is one of the most famous players, one of the best players in IU history, and he is getting booed off the court.
But Travis, you're forgetting something because you don't follow it. He sucks. He has been awful. He has been terrible at recruiting. He hasn't gone out. He hasn't been around the state. High school coaches are not fans of him. He can't land the in-state guys. He loses the guys he gets because he is the lazy recruiter. He is not a good coach. He has shown over and over he is trying to play an old style that does not work, especially today in the college game. And yet he continues to try to force that, and it will not work. Not only has it not worked, he had the highest budget in all of probably college basketball this season. And look what they're doing. It's not that they don't have the talent to win. They do. Look what they did at Mackey. They probably should have won that game had they played with common sense at the end. They didn't, because they were not prepared to do so. And so they have the talent. They do not have the leadership. There is infighting going on there. I think there is infighting with the coaches. I don't think that he listens to other people. It's a very, very unusual situation, unlike any I've ever heard of, to be honest with you.
Yet 2 years ago, they were ascendant. They swept Purdue. They finished second in the Big Ten. They won a game in the NCAA tournament. 2 years ago, everything was great in Bloomington.
Who did they have 2 years ago, Travis? 2 years ago, they had two NBA first-round draft picks.
Isn't that what they're supposed to have right now with Renew and Mbako and Ballo? I mean, my goodness. They show all this NIL money. So what is the difference here?
Renew is not an NBA prospect. I don't know what.
Can they not get the recruits, or can they get the recruits with NIL? What's the difference?
They can, but you have to get the right ones. See, Travis, you don't cover Indiana, so you're not understanding the fact that this is a team that is not put together well. This is a poorly constructed roster. That's why not having the guy that puts it together right is not getting the job done. So that's the problem. Mike Woodson is not a college coach. Regardless of that, Indiana is the right coach away, and maybe Purdue fans don't. I'm sure that they gave Mike Woodson a standing ovation for a reason. They know they would love for Indiana to keep Mike Woodson, but that's not going to be the case. But the discussion is Indiana is a sleeping giant. And I assure you, if they get the right guy, it's going to be fun for Indiana fans. And it'll be fun for the Big Ten. It's good for college basketball. It's good for the Big Ten.
Good God. Oh, good
For
God.
Indiana
Don't
to
give
be
me this
good.
crap about, college basketball needs Indiana to be good. It's the same as, college football needs Notre Dame to be good. The NFL needs.
I didn't say they need them to be good. I said it's good.
Did.
I said it's
you just
good.
Said.
Listen to my
Whatever.
words. I said it's good for college basketball. I don't look at this as a fan. You've got too much fandom in this. I'm not viewing it from a fan standpoint. It's no different than if this were Kansas. It's good for college basketball when the Kansases and the Dukes are good. That's a proven fact. People they do want those names up there. And Indiana is one of those names. They've just sucked for a couple of decades because of the mistakes made by the administration. And there have been some good hires that have just screwed up. Regardless of that, the conversation is that I think Indiana is a sleeping giant. If they get the right guy, they can be back. And I'm not saying back to Final Fours, but they will be competitive as soon as next year. There are too many guys at too many other schools that have done that, and Indiana has the resources to make that happen.
Yeah, they definitely have the resources. I just don't think the fan base has the patience. I really don't. Because whoever they hire I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. I will tell you exactly what's going to happen. Whoever they hire is going to be celebrated as a savior. He's going to be the guy, everybody's going to love him, whether he's the first pick or the 10th pick. He's going to get a big-time recruit. He'll sign a big NIL guy, and all of a sudden that'll be it. And they might make the tournament next year, and everything will be great. Everything will be peachy. And then, they might get another recruiting haul, and it's like, oh, great, now we got 2 5-stars. We got another NIL guy. And then year 2, maybe it'll just be the same. They'll level up. They'll do the same level, make the tournament, maybe win a game. And then in year 3, that's when all the little whispers start to happen. Like, well, this 5-star didn't work out. Christian Lander, hi, how are you? Or, oh, this team's just not working well. Or they're not shooting well. And by year 3, if he's not winning the Big Ten, that's when the turn happens.
Well, guess what?
It's the same.
If they're not,
same thing. It's the same thing. It happened to my team.
If they're not winning it by year 3, Travis, they don't belong there. That's the whole issue. If you're not doing it, where have you been? This is modern sports now. It does not take 4 years to build a program in anything. There's something called NIL and the transfer portal. Did it take Pat Kelsey 3 years with 13 brand new players on a Louisville roster? No. Did it take?
What have they done?
They're winning. They are a very successful team.
Have they won the ACC?
I don't think the season's
over. They
over.
won a tournament game.
The last time I checked, the season wasn't over yet, and he's in his first season.
Okay, so he's getting to the tournament. That's what Mike Woodson did in year 1. Okay,
the point
congratulations.
that is being made is it does not take 3 years. That's the only point.
Woodson won in year 1 and he won in year 2, and then in year 3 you turned on him.
I've never seen so much Purdue envy, and it's not supposed to be about that, but is Purdue really that worried about being that relegated back to irrelevance that quickly as far as a national standpoint?
Not at all. They are
the standard. They are the standard in the Big Ten of late, no question. But when it comes to national, they don't do jack squat.
And I don't care.
But
the tournament itself isn't.
If that's what makes Purdue fans happy, then that's great, because that's pretty much how it's always been and how it will be. But most people want more than that. Most people want to achieve greatness at the highest level, or at least be competitive in that era. That's the whole reason that you're doing it. That's why you
playing
work
in a national title game last year and being in the top 10 this year is not that.
Being in the national title game last year was awesome, but it will never happen. It never happened without Zach Edey. You had this incredible monster, and he's gone. They're not making any Final Four this year. That I can guarantee you, because
you can guarantee that.
I guarantee you, Purdue is not going.
They have a window for the number 2 team in the country that's favored.
Purdue is not going to the Final Four. Let me tell you why. How many NBA draftable players are on Purdue's roster?
Okay, well, how did Wichita State make the Final Four? How
Zero.
did Butler make the
And
How
so
did Butler make the Final Four?
Purdue
Oh,
will
Braden
make
Smith isn't going to make the NBA at all?
Nope.
Braden
Nope.
Smith will not play a single game in the NBA. Okay.
Nope. Not in the NBA proper. Maybe in the G League, maybe in the Summer League. He will never see a minute on an NBA regular season floor. Never.
Okay.
Not for 10 seconds. He's
better than Dakota Matthias, and Matthias made it.
Other people have made it, but Braden Smith is not going to make it.
And I consider that a badge of honor because he's a fantastic college player, and I give two.
He is an awesome NBA. He's an awesome. He's an All-American college player. Don't get me wrong. I don't disrespect him. He is an incredible college player. He is great. He's one of the best in the country, but he does not have the physical capabilities to play in the NBA. And that's just a fact.
I guess we should all be Rutgers then, where we signed 2 top 5 picks and then barely are 500. So
I don't know what that has to do with Braden Smith, but
well, I mean, Rutgers has 2 NBA picks. They should be rolling through the NBA. They've got 2 lottery picks. They should be rolling through the Big Ten right now by that logic. I mean, why is Rutgers not favored to win to make a Final Four?
And one of them has been injured a lot of the time. Plus,
okay, so they still have one. Why are they barely above 500?
Because he's a freshman.
NBA success does not, NBA talent does not mean college success at all.
Oh no, but it guarantees you one thing: if you don't have NBA talent, you will not be in the Final Four, and you will not win a national championship. That's a
George Mason, Wichita State, Butler.
How far back do you have to go for that to happen? That's not today's era.
Lord,
name me a team in today's era that is, I'm telling you right now, I've done the research. I know the last 7 teams that have won a national championship have had NBA draft picks on them. The last 7.
And you still have the likes of San Diego State making a Final Four. You have Florida Atlantic making a Final Four. You have
did Florida Atlantic have any draft picks on that team?
No, they still made the Final Four.
Vladislav.
All you got to do is get hot for 4 days in March. That's all it takes.
Vladislav Golden is not going to be an NBA draft pick?
No, God, no.
Okay, well, we'll see. John L. Davis. This is now at Arkansas. Very, very probable NBA draft pick. I think
if he was going to go to the NBA, he would have gone this year. He's a 5th-year player. He's too old for the NBA. We've gotten completely
away from the discussion that I was trying to have, but regardless of that. But Purdue is hanging on right now. Michigan and Michigan State play each other twice. Purdue plays. Do they play both of those teams yet?
They are at Michigan tonight. They are at Michigan State next week. So the next 4 games are going to decide if Purdue is going to win the Big Ten or if they're going to tie for it or not, because 3 of the next 4 are on the road, with Michigan at Michigan tonight. They're home for Wisconsin on Saturday, at Michigan State, and then at Indiana in the next 4. So I look for them. They're probably going to have to go 3-1 in those games, I would say, in order to have a really good shot at winning the Big Ten. Obviously, a win tonight over a Michigan team that they blew out in West Lafayette a few weeks ago would go a very long way towards winning the title. But you can't take anything for granted in this league and whatnot. A couple weeks ago, Michigan looked like they didn't even belong on the same floor as Purdue. But I think part of that was they ran into a very angry Purdue team after they had lost to Ohio State at home a few days earlier. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight. Michigan's looking to stay in the race. I know that they remember that Purdue game a few weeks ago. So I think you'll see a tight game tonight. And then coming up on Saturday, you got a Wisconsin team that wants to climb back into the race, and they're coming to West Lafayette. And I believe Wisconsin all-time in Mackey Arena is something just absolutely absurd, like 6-48 or something. And one of those wins in Mackey Arena was in the 2021 NCAA tournament, not even against Purdue. So yeah, the next few games are going to be tough for Purdue, and it will be interesting to see if they can get through those before what's going to be an emotional game at Indiana, regardless of Indiana's situation. As you've said before, Mac Woodson gets them up for that rivalry. He has beaten Matt Painter 3 times, and they very nearly got one a few weeks ago in West Lafayette. So I'm not considering that game an easy one at all. I don't think you can consider any Indiana-Purdue game an easy one, regardless of where it's played.
Here's Michigan State's next 3 games. This Saturday, actually, they play Indiana tonight, which at home, so that should be a win. But Saturday, they travel to Illinois. That's going to be a tough game.
Mm-hmm.
Then
depending on which Illinois team shows up.
Well, yeah, that's another point. Their best player is a freshman, and that's why they have been so up and down. He is a great player, and he is a definite NBA potential type player, but he's been inconsistent, and he got sick, I think, during the portion of the year. Purdue then travels to Michigan State on Tuesday, February 18th. Then Michigan State travels to Michigan. Those are their next 3 games after Indiana. So that's going to give a good indication of what Michigan State is going to do. Tonight's game for Michigan with Purdue, obviously extraordinarily important. They need to win that game. That would put them in a tie with the Boilermakers. Then Michigan goes to Ohio State. Then on the 21st, they welcome in Michigan State for another big-time game. They'll play Michigan toward the end of the year at home, and then they travel to Michigan State at the end of the season. So the Big Ten title is up for grabs, and it is going to be fun to watch this play out. And don't forget that UCLA and Wisconsin are not exactly out of it. They're, 2 games back?
I think they're 2 games back in the loss column. I think they've got 4, while Michigan State, Purdue have 2.
Yeah, if these other teams are beating up on each other, they could sneak into the picture. UCLA, winners of 7 straight right now. That leads the Big Ten Conference. So they're on a heater after kind of hitting a lull. Actually, they're a game and a half back, it looks like. So it makes no sense.
And they still have to come to West Lafayette after that Indiana game. So, they will get plenty of opportunity to get into it. If Purdue wins this thing, it's going to be earned with games against Michigan, Michigan State,
if
Wisconsin.
Purdue wins this Big Ten title, this would be the most earned out of the 3, without question to me, because they do not have the freak of nature that is Zach Edey. And this would be a very well-earned Big Ten title. Absolutely, because it's in the expanded Big Ten Conference on top of that, but they are doing it without Zach Edey, and I think that is probably the best coaching job that Matt Painter has done. There's not a lot of coaching that you have to do when you have Zach Edey. Throw Zach the ball. Throw Zach the ball.
I think it's on par with what he did. I still think the 2019 season is a little bit better than what he's done this year, mostly because that was just such a great in-season turnaround. The 2019 team lost 4 senior starters. I mean, that was a team loaded with talent and experience, and they were 6-5 after losing the Crossroads Classic game to Notre Dame. I did not think that team was even going to make the NCAA tournament. And after that game, he managed to turn the whole thing around to where they won the Big Ten and came within a second of a Final Four. And to me, that's his best coaching job, because it was an in-season turnaround, whereas Purdue's been competitive from the get here. They got that really nice win over Alabama in like the 4th game of the season. So, still tremendous job by Matt Painter, just changing the way that they do things this year without Edey. But both of those are within the last 6 years for him, and I think that's a testament to what he can do, to where he can adjust to his personnel either on the fly or knowing going into the season that they're going to play an entirely different style, and it works.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how it happens. How far does Purdue go in the NCAA tournament?
I'm thinking Sweet 16 at least. I'm not expecting a huge run, but I think if you get to the Sweet 16, anything can happen, as we have seen over the last few years. It's such a crapshoot. I mean,
when I said I guaranteed they would not make a Final Four, you seem to take umbrage to that.
I think they at least have a shot, but I think that's because every year you have a team. Who thought NC State was going to make the damn Final Four last year?
Nobody. Oh, nobody. There's
All
always
you need to do is get
who
this.
thought Florida Atlantic would make it? Who thought San Diego State would make it that year?
Exactly.
It's
all you need to
crazy.
do is have a chance. All you need to do is get into the tournament and you got a chance. And
you're
as we've
saying there's
seen,
a
upsets
chance.
happen, injuries happen. I mean, Purdue's lost so many Final Fours on either a horrible game, an injury, weird stuff happening that, it can happen to anybody. And I think we've seen enough that you can get to that last weekend as long as you're just in the tournament. And so that's what's going to be exciting.
We shall see. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks.
You bet. We've got to take a break. We've got more coming up here at the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. We're back with it right after this. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33 Pizza. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Still hoping Joe Hillman gets to join us. I know he had a meeting that he was in earlier, so we were trying to make that happen. If it doesn't happen today, we will reschedule him for another day this week, probably on Thursday. But we got a little time left, so we'll see if he can make it in or not. Boy, that last segment with Travis did not. I love Travis to death, but the thing is, he approaches everything with way too much fandom. And if you're a reporter, you're not supposed to that's just a no-no for the very reason you just saw. I don't think you can be I don't think Travis has the ability to be candid about things because his fandom just guides everything. I can look at something and just say, like Purdue, and acknowledge, hey, this is the best coaching job Matt Painter has done of these 3 Big Ten championships without question. It is the most earned without question. They don't have a Zach Edey. And so that makes the difference. But at the same time, you have to know, you have to realize, hey, to win national championships, you got to have NBA talent on the team. It's a fact. It's not a guess. It's not an opinion. It's a freaking fact. And it's a fact because I've looked it up. I've researched it. I've looked at the teams. I know It's not, and that doesn't make me smart or anything. It just makes me, I have that knowledge because I gained it. And I think when you allow your when you allow fandom to guide things, it obscures and you're just not, doesn't work. So I would love to have just had a discussion about some of that stuff, but it's kind of, it's oh well, what are you gonna do? Herbal says I did express my love for Indiana in that segment. Well, how did I do that? I'd sure like to get an explanation on that. I don't think I did. I think that I just clearly explained things. Just because I said that Indiana is a sleeping giant, that's my opinion. That would be my opinion and it's my opinion because I know that Indiana, I know the resources that they have. I know the talent that grows in this state. I know the NIL capability that they have. I know the fan base that they have. I know the tradition that they have. I know that all the things that they have that many programs that are successful right now do not. Ole Miss does not have the tradition Indiana has, does not have an assembly hall. It does not have 5 national championships hanging in the rafters. It does not have all those Big Ten titles hanging. It does not have the NIL budget. It does not have the in-state recruiting. It does not have the lure, the lore. There's a difference. There just is. And it does not just Indiana. It's Kentucky. It's Duke. It's Kansas. And it's North Carolina. North Carolina currently in the same situation as Indiana. And they're doing the same thing. I mean, they're in the exact same situation. You've got a very famous alum, former player. Brought him in, not working. Not working. And they'll go in a different direction. Unfortunately, and for North Carolina, it'll probably happen a lot smoother than this one will. So there's that. Russell says Indiana is the top job so far, unless Texas opens up money-wise. Or I'm not sure. You mean overall? Yeah, there will be other jobs. North Carolina's going to be open. Stephen thinks I've lost it today. Again, I love to have explanations on that stuff when people throw out there, but that was just a Purdue run there. But man, I hate that Joe didn't get to join us today, but he will join us this week. He's always great friend of the show, so I apologize for that not happening. But we had a great show regardless. Mike DeCourcy and Evan Miyakawa. That was a great run there with those guys, and I hope you all learned a lot. And then tomorrow, of course, on the program, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. The great Sir Rick Bozich will be on, and we'll get into this coaching search without question. And Rick Bozich will tell you just like it is, as I do, but he'll explain to you as well why there are certain people that are just not doable for the job for Indiana. And a lot of it is financial. A lot of it. Financial reasons have eliminated a lot of guys. Just go to thehoosier.com and you'll find out. Look at that list. Hey, and all of you guys that are listening, I don't care if you subscribe, if you're following on YouTube, I don't care if you subscribe or not, but do us a favor. Hit the like button. Man, that's easy. Just hit the like button for us. We would really appreciate it. Steven says, I lost my composure. I don't think so. If I lose my composure, trust me, you'll know it. Believe you me, if I lose my composure, you'll know it. There's a difference between getting excited and losing composure. And I know it. Herbal thinks it was a great show today. I do too. I had a blast, even with Travis. I love that kind of back and forth, to be honest with you. I wish there was more of it. But I wish there was more of it without the fandom incorporated in it. I don't think you can have a great conversation without that. There's no doubt I get some emotion going, but especially if I think that I don't ever think that I am right beyond reproach, but if I am pretty confident that I'm right about something because of research and facts or whatever, yeah, it'll get my blood pressure up a little bit. Does IU play tonight? I believe they do. They have the trip to East Lansing to take on Sparty. So you've got that going for you, which is nice. Hey, I cannot thank everybody enough for joining us today. We're back tomorrow, like I said, Sir Rick Bozich, among others, with us. Yeah, Joe couldn't make it again. Sorry. He had planned on it, but he could not make it. But we'll get him on this week, probably Thursday. I apologize for him not being on. But, man, Beardo, Steven's great. I was going to try to get, oh, my gosh, another good friend of the show. Can't think of it. Former Purdue guy. Robbie Hummel. I've got to reach out to Robbie. Been trying to get him on here lately as well. So appreciate you, James, and everybody else for joining us on the program today. Go out and have yourselves a good one. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.